Hey Lairsons, welcome back to the Wyvern's Lair. I am Dungeon Master Wyvern, and a few weeks ago, a small group of players and I had the privilege of speaking with the producers and content designers for Ultima Online, Kyronix and Parallax. We discussed the New Legacy Seasonal Shard and greatly appreciated hearing about the developer's vision for this important new chapter for Ultima Online. This episode of the DM Wyvern's Lair Ultima Online podcast brings together several players from the Ultima Online community to look at and respond to the following topics the developers spoke about with us: character transfers, shattering, Season 2 character rollovers, player crafting, guild systems, player housing, and community events. We hope that our discussion helps sketch out possible approaches the Broadsword Online Games team might wish to explore for the next season with some of these features and systems. We also hope that our discussion is helpful to the New Legacy player community and inspire listeners of this podcast to share your own feedback and suggestions with the developers for the second season of the New Legacy Shard. Now, step with me into the Mega Dungeon for the latest episode of the Wyvern's Lair Ultima Online podcast. Welcome all. This is a follow-up to a recent conversation that many of us here had with the good developers at Broadsword Online Games regarding the New Legacy Shard for Ultima Online Season 1, and also a look ahead into Season 2. We have a great group of players who are joining the conversation this morning to review that discussion and provide feedback. And I'd like to start things off with quick introductions from everyone who's been able to make the time for this. So thank you one and all for coming by. I'm really excited for this conversation, especially with the group that's assembled here. So let's go right down and just have quick introductions so we have a sense of who is attending this discussion, beginning with my friend Argembarger.
Hi, I'm Argembarger, or Tom. I'm a new player. I'm familiar with the history of UO from anecdotes and fun stories online, and I'm also a game designer and developer, so I have kind of dual interests in history and game design. So happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, Argembarger. Crispy.
Hi, yeah, I'm Crispy. I'm from Atlantic Shard originally, in the Cool Guild. As a guild, we've kind of moved. Quite a few people have come over to New Legacy, and we've got new people have been joining us, and I've been enjoying that. So it's great to come here and get to chat about it.
Fantastic. And you were part of that initial discussion with the developers, Crispy, so thank you for making the time to show up for this follow-up. UO legend, Mariah, aka Petra Fyde.
Hello, I've been around since 2000 and never left. I'm resident scribe, I suppose you'd call me. Play mostly on Europa, where I'm quite active, but I'm also enjoying the nostalgia of playing on NL.
Mariah, such an honor to have you here. Over to Poison Ivy.
Hi, Poison Ivy here, originally from Chesapeake Shard, been playing since day one, off and on throughout the years, always keeping up with the lore. And when New Legacy came out, it really brought me back, and I'm just so happy to be here and seeing where it goes, and the interactions we're having with the devs give me great joy. So I look forward to what comes of this.
Thank you so much for being here, Ivy. Also, one of the comrades from our initial conversation with the developers that serve as the foundation for the discussion today. Glad you could make the time for this. Her husband, RexRumble.
And hi, good morning. I'm RexRumble, last son of Krypton. I only exist because Ivy plays games.
Best son of Krypton. Thank you for being here, Rex. Over to Zeke.
But I've been playing with...
was
that done?
Oh, sorry.
I've been playing with Ivy for 10 years or so in UO, and I came from production there.
Hey, that's a great story, and you should stick to it, Rex. Thank you for being here. Always a joy to have you around. Zeke.
Yeah, this is Zeke, also known as Jack Sparrow. From the Legend Shard, I started playing in 2004, and currently we are building our Mystic Circle guild on NL. with about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of our core players from Legends are now playing.
Thank you for being here, Zeke. Also, one of the community members who joined us for that first conversation with the developers a few weeks ago. I'm glad you could make it for this one, Zeke. So to just frame the conversation here, we did have an opportunity to speak with Kyronix and Parallax, the producer and content designer for Ultima Online / New Legacy a few weeks ago. In that discussion, we had a chance to talk to them about the origins of New Legacy Shard, how the season's been going for themselves as developers, and early plans for the second season. That was mostly an opportunity for us to listen to the developers, and we really wanted to give them the time and space to share their thoughts with us in the wider player community, New Legacy player community for Ultima Online. The purpose of discussion today is to return back to what the developers shared with us and have an opportunity to provide them essentially an informal focus group around some of the key topics we discussed. I do want to thank the developers for making the time to speak with us and also for taking the time to listen to the content coming out of this YouTube channel. I take it as a great compliment and responsibility. And I also want to thank, of course, the attendees here for joining us. Now, I think what I aspire towards, and I think one reason why the developers have connected with myself as a content creator and this channel and channel community in the way that they have is because I do and we do have feedback for the developers, and it's often critical feedback, but it's always delivered respectfully. And I think that's been sort of key to establishing that relationship with Broadsword Online Games. I think the criticism is fair and welcome. The key here, of course, is that it has always been respectful and will remain respectful here at the Wyvern's Lair, along, of course, with the attendees here. So I want to thank you all for just being great ambassadors for Ultima Online and for these conversations with the developers. So I would like to start things off for today with a look at the character transfers at the Shattering. Let's go ahead and listen to the developers in their own words, and then we will kick off our roundtable.
Yeah, so if you look at the original New Legacy FAQ that we have on UO.com, we kind of went over this in broad strokes, and a lot of that still remains the case. There's, with any kind of persistently evolving gameplay world, we have to be really careful about what we allow to transfer back to production, making sure it's not going to break anything. Because, we can expect things go a certain way and we can test to make sure they go a certain way. And then we can verify that they have gone a certain way. And then you guys get your hands on it and it goes a completely different way that we never anticipated or expected. So, we will be doing kind of a final audit before the Shattering begins. But if in terms of broad strokes, you can kind of consult that list. Some of the things on there, like we want to allow that kind of core legacy to be something that you can show off on production. So what that ultimately ends up looking like and how that makes its way over to production still remains to be seen, just based on how things have kind of shaken out this season. Certain things, that you definitely wouldn't be able to take, probably equipment falls into that category. We did balance, and Nick can go into this a little bit more. We talked about how we balanced pets for being in the context of the broader production level pet scheme. So there is some flexibility there, but I don't want to who used to say it? Starlong used to say, "Don't lure me, bro." So it all remains to be determined, but there is some flexibility for us to let you take some goodies over to production when the season ends.
Okay. So with that developer response fresh in our minds, let's go ahead and start this roundtable off, beginning with Argembarger. Early thoughts on how the developer shared there.
Yeah, it's for me, one of the things is like there's like so many shards, and it's like one of the decisions is like which shard should I bring if you can bring your character out, like which one do I even pick? So I'm still like kind of learning a lot about like the game world. So to me, it's like kind of, I guess I from my perspective, I'm just gonna kind of ride along and see what happens. And so, yeah, I don't have too much to say because it's all new to me, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm excited to like learn more about the shards. I've only visited like one or two other shards besides New Legacy, and they all seem like they have very different history and very different folks hanging out in them. So, yeah, I guess that's a little higher level than maybe some of the details being shared here, but yeah, that's kind of my take.
No, it's a great take, and I think it is valuable that you're a brand new player to Ultima Online. We don't really have too many players like yourself with your profile who are entirely brand new to the game. So I think that your perspective along some of these questions will be very important and interesting for the developers to listen to. And it is great to hear from you that basically your top line question is where you go at the end of the season, right? And I think a lot of new players will probably have that same question for themselves.
Yeah, I guess for a lot of other players, this is like they might have an alt character here, but this is my only character. So it's like, yeah, kind of overriding.
Thanks, Argembarger. Over to Crispy.
Oh, well, I was just going to quickly respond to Argembarger. Maybe we should have a shard slash guild recruitment fair just before the shattering to help people sort of make their decision. But
Yeah.
the with regards to the transfers, I've sort of been thinking. I know people are going to think of the pets because I think they're a big chaser thing, which in its own thing, it kind of, I don't know, it's a bit tough on lawyers, right? They said we want people to have things that we can go and show off over on production if they move a character over, and it looks to me that I'm looking at how a character transfer token works. You get from the store, and that lets you bring your whole stable, right? So I'm thinking, I've been thinking, is it going to be your followers or is it going to be your stable? And I'm guessing it will be your stable. It's tough because you could tame anything and bring it over, and as long as the logic works okay. I'm just not sure about the pets or whether they'll say, right, you can bring one Ember over or a Manticore. But I feel confident that they're going to let those big prestige pets come over, but the hard to get ones, because frankly, I think it would cause too much headache if they didn't. Like, people have poured a lot of effort into collecting gold bars or feathers for a Manticore. I think it would just be, I think I can see them bringing them over. But yeah, like I say, I think for other classes, that doesn't kind of leave too much for them. I mean, I don't want to sort of take up too much time on this because we can, when you think of the legacy items, I'm sort of thinking, is it, you got the Adventurer's Guidebook that you start with. I think anything to do with like art, or the books, I think we'll get to keep. And, and then there's a question mark around the other bits and pieces, which are no use on production really. Manticore hide belt, maybe, that kind of thing. I wonder whether they're going to kind of go through a list or whether they're just it's going to be a very broad stroke of just like, okay, it's your pets and your adventure book and your journal. I don't know whether they're going to go through everything and work out what goes and what doesn't.
Fair enough, Christy. Mariah.
I think we've yet to find out what we're going to be able to take. There are collectibles they've mentioned coming in published 2, which is in April. And I think it'll be those collectibles that we'll be able to take, as well as our journal, etc. That's my gut feeling about it anyway. I think we have not yet got to the legacy items that we'll be wanting to take with us.
That's an interesting perspective. Thank you, Mariah. Poison Ivy.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with Crispy on this one. It feels like New Legacy should be New Legacy Tamer, because all we can know for sure so far is pets will be transferable. No real word on any anything for anybody else. And, if I were a bard or a ranger, any other kind, fighter, there's got to be something that we can all take back that is our story, which is what we're building here, to show off on production for our effort. So I think they need to have something as stunning to show off on production for everyone else, because the pets are going to be the big thing. And I just don't think that it's fair or balanced at this point with what they have spoken about that is transferable. So they need to work on that for sure.
Thank you, Ivy, for your perspective. RexRumble.
Well, prior to Argembarger, that's fun to say. It's a heartfelt confession about this being his main character. I thought that the whole concept of transferring characters was just a load of tosh. I mean, what's the point? Because they don't play here the way they play on production. For those of you who came from production shards or who did this before you did New Legacy, you know that you have to work to earn those skill points. And you have to work to earn your stat points. You might go out and chop trees for a whole day to get your strength up. And here, and this is not a slide on Argembarger's point. It actually supports it. It's piss easy to level to your max by following your quest line. And it's easy to switch over and try new weapons, which I like very much. But when I think about what would be the value of taking my character to a production shard, I don't actually see much to it, because at this point, what is my legacy? I've killed Titan Weave 120 times. It's other than getting a really sick pet like some of you have done to take over to production, which, as Ivy pointed out, may not be fair. I'm not sure. It's like, well, we're not sure if you can take your equipment. Well, then I'm a naked fighter. What exactly have I accomplished? Especially because you consider on production shards, there are builds that over the decades of the game being around have templated to be superior to anything we have here. So you're going to take this character over, and then you're going to have to start earning up the differentials. And so I've not really understood why this is considered to be value added. Whereas if more effort was put into making New Legacy a seasonal, your main thing, that would be interesting. So I've not really cared too much about the transfer, although I am listening to people's concerns and I'm taking them on board, but I'm not a developer, so I have no say in it.
That's really another great point, Rex. Over to Zeke.
Yeah, it is a great unknown. When we discussed this with them, and mentioned equipment, for example, I would love to take the starting equipment and the promotion equipment that you got during the different paths, like, the ranger gear. Stop talking about the resist or anything else. It's just, ranger expert, ranger adept, ranger master, etc. Where it wouldn't be any change as far as impact to production, but it would give, fighters, rangers, warriors, something to bring over with them that's meaningful. At least it was meaningful to me to keep a collection of each of the different equipment I got as I progressed through the path. I mean, granted, I do have a tamer and I do have pretty much most of the pets. There are a couple I'm still going to get before the end. But for the most part, yeah, I think they need to at least consider some of the aspects of the warrior and the ranger. Not too sure about what a crafter is going to bring anyway, but there's that.
And you make a great point, Zeke.
Fucking Vive.
I'm going to throw in my couple of cents here, having gone through the roundtable for this topic. Ivy, I think you do make a great point. The first season of New Legacy seems to sort of push people towards animal taming and the chase pets for the first season, the Emberwing, the juvenile manticores, the Snarl-toots, at the expense of pretty much everything else in terms of player pursuit of content or rewards. And then to Zeke's point, you do raise a great question about gear that wouldn't have design impact on the production shards. I think when we spoke to developers, their concern was destroying collections. That was, the point that Kyronix made, bringing over some of this new legacy narrative path rewards that could destroy existing collections on production that they would like to avoid. But I would hope that they would look at that, because I do think that you, along with myself and many other new legacy players who've gone through the narrative path for the warrior, the mage, and the ranger, may have items that they would like to take back as mementos and memories of their time on the first season. And of course, the achievement of getting through the narrative path. And to the point of the fact that, the developers do seem to have a really, hard stance on not transferring equipment back to production from New Legacy. If that is the case, then this is something that Slurms brought up in a conversation we had just last night on a guild adventure with the Wyvern's Lair. Was Slurms McKenzie, shout out to Slurms, was, if this is the case, why can't the developers put in capstone items for the narratives, for the warrior, for the ranger, for the mage, that they can pursue through the point system, or, as a possible legendary foe drop reward, and make it a little bit overtuned for the fact that it doesn't go back to production, won't destroy production balance, and could feel very rewarding for these respective narrative paths or classes, however you want to look at them. And with that out of the way, I'm going to open up the floor very briefly for just a free discussion on this topic before we move on to the next one.
I guess it'd be cool if they at least let you bring some kind of journal snapshot that showed all the cool stuff you had before the shattering. So that would be kind of neat.
I was thinking that about bringing your character over, and if you're a vet and you've got every kind of build that you need, which most people will have, that are established on one of the production shards, is the devs did say it's sort of one of the main, when we asked them what's the concept behind it, a big thing about it is to get returning players or new players into the game. So it does give you that. I don't think it's too much harm giving you like a base character that you can use on production, and I wouldn't say it's usable, like massively usable when you first get there, especially if you're like you got like a warrior character with nothing, but you could do something with it. I think they've gone from having like the worst on production. The new or returning player experience is kind of terrible, right? It's not great at all. So this like brings you into it, and then you've got something to work with when you get there, for your troubles. So I can totally see what they're saying about it.
This is Rex, if I may piggyback on that, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah.
Has anyone tried the non-quest narrative path in New Legacy?
I have
The
not.
freeform. I have. And it's not rewarding, emotionally or mentally. And what you were saying there, Crispy, this is Crispy, right?
Yeah.
I should know. It's one of the two accents on board today. Good on you, mate. So here's the thing. If you're in production right now, as you mentioned, and you come in as a new player, there's all these people shouting at you, "Adventurer, I have a chance for you to earn some gold," but chances are you already know to some degree how to play the game. And so you're going to go out there, and there's this intro quest path, and it gets you at least to 50. And that's a sandbox. And New Legacy is a little more of a narrative, at least until you finish your class quests. And the thing about a narrative is it gives you a sort of a mental and emotional buy-in where you feel like you're doing something in the world. Whereas if you're over on production and you're returning to production, you already kind of know how the game plays, this big sandbox, and what you're just trying to do is get your stats and abilities up so that you can do what you want to do. Is New Legacy going to make people want to go play production? Because if you've started at New Legacy and you go try production today, you will find you have culture shock, and there is what we call in economics barriers to entry, because production shard is an economy of scale. And I don't know if I mean, I agree you want to keep your trophies and your pets, but I just don't know if New Legacy is the right way to get people back interested in UO if the idea is to get you over to production. But if New Legacy were to evolve into its own thing, then I think it would be far more effective.
Yeah,
So,
I get what you're saying 100% because it's a gamble they've taken, right? Of like, well, you could have put all that content into production and made an amazing starter quest and all that stuff, or is New Legacy its own thing? Like, I like it, you know, I like it as its own thing, and I'll return on season 2 because I like everything being a kind of new experience. I've done things on production like a million times over, and I like that, right? So, but yeah, you're right. It's hard to put yourself in like that new player shoes of like, well, how will you feel going to prod? But then again, I have seen players for sure who they played a bit of New Legacy, and it's not, I've seen a few people who have gone over to production straight from New Legacy and started playing it because they're like, I kind of want more stuff to do,
They won't be going on on their own. I mean, if Argembarger went to production now, some of you would help him when he got there. So they would have a support system already in place to help him adjust and get into the different ways that production works now.
It's a really good point. Like New Legacy can be a good, just like social bridge for new players.
Yeah, that's a really
Yeah,
good point,
I
Mariah.
don't want to.
Oh, go ahead, Ivy.
I just want to say yes, that is 100% true, Mariah. But I think that if somebody wants to have the actual, I'm a newbie, I want to know the basics, and then I want to start off on my own on production shard, from the get-go, and you want to do it raw. You don't want all the help, like the basics maybe. Like, just get me a horse and a rune book and then go at it. To have somebody believe in New Legacy that you can do these quests and you can be GM in a day on all of your skills, when the reality is if you were to just go basic and literally make yourself do production day one, naked character, and do the things that we all had to do back in the day, like Rex was saying, chopping wood all day long to get your stats up, not using all of the fancy stuff we have now and experience the game, they're in for a rude awakening because NL is kind of like a mirage, if you will. um, because I think you'll still have some shock if you go and try to do that because it is not anything like production. If you were to start off as a newbie and you didn't know anybody and you had to go chop trees all day long, or you had to go mine ore all day long, and all you got was 10 points if you're not GM, I think it would be very shocking.
You're right, Ivy. I was thinking about this question myself because I'm arguably a new player, but not as new as Argembarger. And, when I finally had a chance to spend some time with Ultima Online 4 years ago on Atlantic, I had that experience that Rex talked about ending up in New Haven and taking those initial quests and raising my primary skills to 50 for my Gargoyle Mystic Thrower. And then, of course, heading out and progressing my skills. That has been, the design of Ultima Online since 97. You make a great point there. I will say, though, as someone who has, really committed to New Legacy, I am comforted at the fact that a couple of things here. I have been able to sort of figure out how to play a warrior and now a tamer in a really sort of gently directed, fashion. And as far as the narrative paths are concerned, that's been very helpful to me as a new player. And I also have this comfort with my crafter that, when I take that crafter back to production, because that is the character that I intend to transfer over, that I will have saved myself a great deal of drudgery from the original system by advancing that particular character on New Legacy.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to be the case.
Well, not entirely. Obviously, there is
No,
that.
no. Well, okay. Can I let
Oh,
me
of course.
straighten that out a little bit? the drudgery aspect of a crafter on production is the skills that you didn't even that are inherent in the build. For example, lumberjacking. You have your carpenter. You do have lumberjacking, but lumberjacking is way different in production. It's a lot more tedious. You have to hit the key every time you hit the tree. So it's not click the tree and then watch all the wood pile up into your back or into your repository. It is click it wood, click it wood. Oh my God, they're logs, they're heavy. Turn them into boards, put them in someplace. Click and click it. Same thing with mining. You have to deal with the weight system. On a crafter, the most tedious thing is resource gathering, which is trivial in New Legacy. Just so you're aware. And so it's their inherent. It's not one skill; it's two skills in production. So you're not going to be able to have your 6 or 7 GM crafter have all the skills needed. You'll need bow crafting. Right now carpentry is bow crafting, lumberjacking, and carpentry, where it's 3 separate skills that you're going to have to build the other 2 of in production. So I think the crafting's probably the easiest one is on New Legacy. You're not having to deal with a lot of the manual effort that goes into creating a crafter on production.
You make a great point, Zeke, and obviously, for players like myself, who are familiar with a way of playing a crafter on New Legacy, who transfers over to production and runs into a more complex, more time-consuming system, that will be, a new learning curve for a player like myself. But I still would feel like I was a little bit ahead of the curve, having advanced, an initial crafter here on New Legacy. But
Oh, most definitely. I mean, you're not going to have to have all the resources to create, to build the crafting skills part of it, because that part's already done. But I mean, the major difference, I think, between the crafting and New Legacy on production is the fact that resource gathering is a lot more tedious in production.
Before we move on to this topic, what do you guys feel about going a little crazy with equipment? If in fact we can't transfer over equipment to production, do you want to see like a Holy Avenger for the warrior narrative be available in the second season, sort of like a weapon that's incredibly powerful but doesn't break the existing design for equipment production, because obviously it stays here on New Legacy season to season?
No, that's silly.
I
That's
kind of
my
agree. Yeah, I don't. I think New Legacy should stand on its own, and you shouldn't have like exclusive things that people just see as a anti-chaser, but is OP on the shard. I agree with Rex.
And if I may add to that, I don't know if any of you have ever played the game Final Fantasy series of games from out of Japan. The first one was very much Dungeons and Dragons, but by the time they got around 6, 7, 8, you start your character out, you have like 1,000 hit points, but you're doing 100 points of damage. And I just want to say to them, can you not divide by 10? Just making the numbers bigger doesn't change anything if everything is still working at the same tier. If I hit for 100 points of damage and the monster has 1,000 points of damage, divide by 10 or divide by 100. You're still doing the same thing. Now, if they want to bring paladins on board in season 2, great, I'm all for it. But just making some uber weapon, because then everyone's going to have it. And then it's going to be, Garthok went down in 2 seconds. How long do we have to wait for Icemancer to come back up? An hour? Okay, I'm going to go get a sandwich.
Well, Crispy, and really this is to Rex as well, we do have, arguably a capstone chase for tamers and the way the pets that are available here on New Legacy. And indeed, these capstone chase rewards will likely transfer over to production, Amberwing and the juvenile Manticore. So that being the case, why wouldn't we want a capstone chase for the narrative classes? What's the objection there?
Yeah, but you're saying that you have an item that you can't transfer, but the pets, it looks like you can transfer. So from what I can see, right, of just on Discord and people are saying, like, people who they're not even interested in New Legacy saying, get me a Emberwing, right, or I'll pay for it. So you could have never played production, get yourself a Manticore and Emberwing, bring it over, and you're rich instantly. But if you can't if it's some weapon, it's just like an OP weapon. It's going to be. Do you see what I mean? Like it stays on New Legacy. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm getting wires crossed here.
Yeah, so am I, because we were answering that first question about a non-transferable Uber weapon. Now, if you're talking about a chase item, in my years of playing, there's one thing I've learned. Dedicated production UO players care about, more than anything, knickknacks and tchotchkes to put into their houses that have dates and were limited time. So if you say, oh, this was only available during the Halloween event in 2012, they love that. Because when you hover over it, it tells you what it is. So if you had some capstone item, a sash, helmet, a weapon that wasn't usable in production, but you could put it on your wall or you could put it at your house, and then people could see, oh, you were in Legacy Season 1 and you got that capstone item. Yeah, I would totally accept that that's a good thing. But not, not the Goddardammerung sword that casts nuke on everything, but then it doesn't come with you. I mean, well, that's like beating a game and then you can free play roam around it. Well, what's the point now? I've beaten it.
That's why I think the collectibles that they are promising in treasure maps and in events in Published 2, not Season 2, Published 2, are what we are going to be able to be taking back as our legacy items to show the things we've got and acquired during this Legacy Season 1.
And I think that's ideal, because at the bottom, you'll do it and it'll say treasure map completed by so-and-so. And that's a piece of the non-fungible, non-transferable token that says, I did something. It doesn't have any in-game effect other than to commemorate something. And therefore it doesn't imbalance anything. And it is something production players love.
So, just doubling down on my line of thinking here, Crispy, you actually had said something just a few days ago about how you would like to see content that would be exclusive to New Legacy. Now, does that extend to items as well, or strictly to content? And what's the objection to not having items that are exclusive to NL and that don't transfer back to production?
So if you're over on New Legacy doing your thing over here, I think that you're going through definitely the narrative paths and things like that. That's only going to be in New Legacy, but I really felt like things like doing some of the all of the bosses, I think, should stay here, right? So whatever boss you do, I think they could spin it up something very similar but different. But I think you should feel like you've got a bit of a different experience and an exclusive experience here if you're going to do it. Like otherwise, it's very difficult, and it goes back to you need a balance of wanting vets from the production shards and having people who are new to UO joining onto New Legacy. I sort of, in my mind, I think like if you're going to play OSI Ultima Online, New Legacy is a really good place to start now. I haven't got any, people that go straight to production. That's all cool and everything, but you still have to give something to the people who are spending their time here and something exclusive. If you just put it over on production, then you won't get, you kind of have vets driving things still in terms of the numbers and people who are willing to kind of keep coming on every day. And that's my line of thought, is that I think there needs to be some exclusivity from it. And actually what Rex and Mariah are saying, if you've got these collectible things that you can bring over, they're exclusive, you can take them onto production. It's a little bit different to those items being, you can just get them on production anyway, because what's the point of a vet doing New Legacy?
Fair enough. In my mind, I don't personally see the harm on Broadsword experimenting with equipment here on New Legacy that may not be transferable, especially if it makes the narrative classes feel a little bit more satisfying in the end, or provide something that would allow me to feel competitive as a warrior next to, let's say, a mage tamer or a warrior tamer. Because I certainly felt a big jump in terms of my prowess for my character the moment that I branched out into taming. And I really couldn't remain competitive as a warrior with what's currently available in the equipment here on New Legacy for a single class warrior. With that,
No, sure, that's true.
Oh, really?
I've got as many drops with my archer as I have with my tamer. At one stage, I was going through a period where the archer was getting drops that she could give to the tamer, and the tamer was getting drops to give to the archer. Things like the different armor types. Tamer was getting bows to pass over. The archer was getting leather armor to pass over, and in fact, if I remember right, the archer was the first one to get a lure.
So do you feel like your ranger was out DPSing or sort of on par with DPS compared to your tamer?
Yeah, pretty much. As long as she had got the current level of weapons. As long as she's leveled up our weapons, she's now getting Vank weapons, she is getting the sort of stuff that the tamer can get. Honestly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Again, I'm not going to claim to have any sort of significant master insight over equipment design on New Legacy. So thank you for that perspective, Mariah. All right. We do need to move over to our next question here. I had anticipated that this would be a very, lengthy and deep discussion amongst the attendees here. So thank you all for really spending some time on that first question here. The next question is Season 2 character rollovers. How will characters roll over to Season 2? I'm going to go ahead and play that on for you all, and then we will pick things up again.
So I think a big part of that is your house name, right? We always intended on that to persist from season to season. So it's almost like you're playing with either another generation of your family or another facet of reality, because one of the nice things about the broader Ultimate Universe is that we kind of play it fast and loose with space and time and alternate realities and things like that. So if in season 1 you're playing as a character with a specific house name, then in season 2 it could be, your 5th generation grandchild, or it could be the iteration of that legacy that happened in a world where magic is shunned and mages are treated like outcasts and cast down to the most undesirable places in the world. It could be a world where, animals are natively aggressive and everything is out there to kill you. And, there's things like permadeath, who knows, right? One of the nice things about New Legacy is that we have that kind of clean slate to do some interesting and experimental things with the, permadeath. That one's going to get me in trouble. With New Legacy. So, and kind of the continuity between those seasons is going to be your house surname. Now, as far as like what rolls over, like, are you going to be able to roll in with your character with full stats? Definitely not. We're pretty firm on the fact that it's going to be a hard reset from a progression standpoint, and the things that'll progress are more in line with what your character's legacy or story is at that point.
So I have 2 concerns here, and then we'll start going down the round table here. How do we feel about a skill reset for the second season for those of us who will be New Legacy veterans? Are we looking forward to having to run a character through either the narrative or divergent path a second time? Do we want to be given the ability to maybe optionally reset to 0 and build that character back up? And then 2, my other concern is it's really not clear to me, or I think really anyone else here, what does it mean to build on that legacy? It's apart, of course, from the house name, which just rolls over to the second season. So there's a distinct lack of clarity there for myself as a player. With that, we're going to start things off with Argembarger.
Yeah, why can't I just become a lich and just survive? Oh well. I know, I think the house name stuff is pretty neat. Like, I think it as far as like this game's kind of role as a medium for role play, like that seems like a nice thing to focus on and try to do something special for that. Like when I just from the new player's perspective, when I was going through my character creations, like I didn't really, think when it was like, what is your house name? I didn't really, I didn't expect it to be something that they would consider like something that will carry over to another season or any of that. And I'm pleasantly, I think that's a cool detail. So I'm like kind of excited by that. So, yeah, and if you want to, I guess everybody can personally role play like what's going on here. Like, I guess, yeah, if you decided to keep your stats, you could role play that as like, I don't know, either you personally trained your descendant, or maybe that you are in fact your original character pretending to be a descendant or something. You can role play it that way, and if you start over, obviously, then you can try different things and not get locked down to certain paths. So the pros and cons of that, because it is like kind of notorious that my first playthrough, I kind of got just kind of personal curiosity interest locked into the crafter path, which I live with and accept. I have an old character who's a warrior, and that's been a lot of fun to learn. So I on that front, I think it does make me feel good about season 2 that I can like start over and try a mage or try a ranger. Like there's so many options. You only get 2 per reset. Like this is a nice way I see for me to get a taste of each of the character classes before I do something really permanent over in production. Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you. Crispy.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with. I mean, the way it works is obviously you do the narrative um, to skill your character up and go through that journey. And I've got to say, when I did it, when I first played the game, New Legacy, I was loving it doing that whole thing. I thought it was great, and I was like, actually, these are the best quests I've ever done on Ultima Online. Like just going, I wasn't a major fan of like after my sort of defending so many wagons and stuff. I was like, well, this is a bit slow, but the actual narrative bit, I loved it, and I'm happy that things get reset. What I was thinking about though was, so I don't mind that, and I think everyone should start at 0 again. That's cool. But when the promotional material first came out for the game, I can remember they had a bit where, and maybe I'm just imagining this, they walked into like, there's a hall or something with statues up on plinths,
I remember
and they had little plaques. Yeah, like there's little plaques on them. And if you think, a lot of it is all about levels and tracking. So every time you do a spawn, you get like a rating. So you're ranked and guilds are ranked. And, what I'm wondering is like when we go into the next season, is that going to carry over? So we're going to see, is that what they're kind of teasing? Is that, if you say you were the person that got the most points at Richter spawn, right? Is there going to be like a little skeleton of you in the corner with a plaque next to it? So here lies Crispy. He died what he loved doing or something. And then, you've got you've got like a hall of like guilds, which kind of they'll have to hand curate that, of just look at what guilds were the kind of had the most prestige points. Well, we'll put something for those guilds dotted around. What characters kind of had the most points in this thing. Maybe dungeon outposts, that they might put something in there. So that's what I'm hoping. Like, and that's what I had in my mind when I sort of saw. I actually wondered how they would do that persistence. I don't care about stats because I want to do the narrative path, and I don't care starting at 0. It's so easy to get through it, but it's a lot of fun. So that's my kind of take on it.
Cheers. Mariah.
You mean sort of like a Hall of Fame? So our first season characters, there'll be a statue of them somewhere, and we start fresh with the next generation in season 2. Same family, new generation. Yeah, I think that's possibly right. I know that the intention was always that you start fresh every season, start from scratch.
Any additional thoughts or inputs or concerns there, Mariah?
I don't think so, because that's what I understood from the start, that we would go through this first season with one character, and the second season you start again. It's all start from 0 again. And I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave you. I've commitments in the real world.
Terrified, demanding some of your attention and time.
Just a bit, yes.
Mariah, such a
You
pleasure to have you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll leave you in there. Okay, bye-bye for now.
A legend, UO legend, Mariah, aka Petra Fyde. Over to Ivy.
Okay, so where do I start here?
A lot of thoughts.
Well, I mean, not a lot, just very specific. I don't mind starting over, and I like the legacy of your name continuing on. My thing is, I don't want to have to go through all these same narrative quests. I hope that they change them up. So for people who are tamers and things like that, going through each step to become a tamer, I hope that, how we have Hoof and, all these named pets now, I hope maybe we get new pets and new ways to get them, new little quests that we have to do. Because if it's exactly the same over and over again, I mean, it's boring. Um, so I don't want to see it to be exactly the same. It can be the same steps, but at least change the story. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I like the idea as well as like the statues or plaques and things of that nature. We see in production housing and plaques and statues and things of that nature. So in order for anybody to go, oh, poison ivy, and my family last name is Thornbush. Well, I come back as, I don't know, Rose Thornbush, right? How do they know that I'm the descendant of Poison Ivy if Poison Ivy is not recognized somewhere in the game already to tie me to that storyline? I mean, yeah, I know, but isn't the point of us doing this is it's not just us, it's the world? But those are my two big things.
Those are two really great thoughts. Thank you for sharing them with us, Ivy. Over to Rex.
Yeah.
I might be the only person that's looking forward to having his entire character supply wiped and starting back from the beginning, because Ivy and I have two very different theories on gameplay. I like to do the same quest over with different classes just to see how they work. It's a tactician thing. And I don't mind repeating, at least for a little while. After a while, it will get old. But with only having 2 character slots, I took a lot of risks with Punkenstein here that's sitting on the screen. I said, yeah, I'm going to follow the Bard path. I didn't really like the way it worked out. I had to massage it a little bit. Then I said, I'm going to try Tamer for a little bit. And when I saw the damage it did to my other 2 classes, I abandoned it. You could follow Ranger, Warrior, Ranger, Tamer, Warrior, Tamer. I'm not going to name all the combinations out. You have far more combinations than you have character slots. So there's an opportunity with a fresh, scrape it clean and start fresh for me to try that other thing that I didn't try, I say Ranger. But I also would like to see some more options added. And if those options are added, or for example, Necromancers and Paladins, they already have the basics of them in the game, because those Shadow Warriors that we fight in the narrative, and when we fight against Princess Chlamydia, the Mind Shaper, what she gates in, those are Necromancers. And anyone from production knows that Necromancer is a completely playable class. In fact, sometimes we even see the reagents on the bodies. So the 1s and 0s are there. And if they're going to go for a second season and they add some more class option choices for us to build into, like you could start as Warrior and build a Paladin, that's fine, or start Paladin fresh. A few more narrative lines, and then I think I'm completely happy with it. As far as my legacy, I mean, when I made my house name, they warned me, this is permanent. And I said, Punkenstein it is. And so I'm completely happy. Now, will my legacy be reflected in a book somewhere or a statue? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what that does. But my biggest concern is getting a chance to try those things that I haven't got to try yet. And so I'm very pro starting back at 0, which is probably the odd man out. But that's my feelings.
Good feelings, Rex. Thank you for sharing that with us. Zeke.
I'm sorry, I just got back. I had a call.
Zeke agrees with Rex. He thinks that everything Rex says is genius.
Always right. There's never a doubt in my mind. If Rex says it, it's to be.
I'm always saying that.
See, I agree. He's only saying that. But I don't know. I've tried every class. I've made some weird combinations. I've been adding magery to my rangers, just to get some extra little bonuses from them. But as far as when the new season comes out, I don't mind starting all over again. I like to see something new. I like to see, like you said, Shiv and Necro added. I've actually taken templates from New Legacy and try to recreate them on production. Obviously, like with the crafter, I didn't do it with the crafter, but as an example, there's additional skills that are required to make it a usable character on production. For example, like if I had a Ranger, adding Shiv as a good example. But when the second season comes out, I'm looking forward to a fresh start. Yeah, it'd be cool to have my name associated with it and any history involved with whatever my characters did in season 1, if that is in some way carried over to season 2 as like maybe in a book format, like they took your legacy sash and based on the achievements that you did here, that it relates to some kind of story that's handed down from generation to generation. But yeah, that's about all I have on it.
Cheers, Zeke. So I have my concern with the character rollover and the hard reset is this. I have a couple of concerns here. The narratives took a significant amount of developer time and labor. They turned out to be a great experience, as many of us here have acknowledged. It's been fun progressing characters through the narratives. But I think that came at the expense of the end game for New Legacy. And I think that the developers are kind of playing catch up at this point to strengthen the end game experience. And the narratives make up arguably the smallest amount of your time as a player. I did my own narrative for my warrior 7 months ago, and I haven't returned to that again over the course of my journey here on New Legacy. So those are distant memories for myself. I would be worried if the developers were to refresh the narratives in a significant way for the second season at the expense of other elements of the New Legacy experience that I think should be strengthened. Where it does make sense for time to be spent on fresh narrative, kind of ties into what Rex was talking about with introducing major new skills like chivalry and necromancy. In which case, I think it would make a lot of sense for developer time to be spent weaving that into the New Legacy experience along with taming, for example, or the assassination narrative path, the assassin narrative path. So that's where my thoughts are with that. I kind of would hope, like for a veteran like myself who may not want to do the divergent path or the narrative path again, that there is an option to reset to 0 or an option to roll over to the second season with your current skills. Again, it doesn't take all that long to complete a character. So it does seem like that option should be available for players who may not want to have to run through that gauntlet a second time. However, the developers have been, they have stated quite strongly that they intend to do that hard reset. I guess before we move off this topic, I just want to do a quick check-in with the attendees here regarding the legacy, because we've touched on this. There was talk of a Hall of Fame. Crispy and Mariah spoke about that. Ivy kind of mentioned this as well. But what would it look like to you guys to continue your character's legacy in a satisfying way? Would you want your legacy sash to move over? Your player diary with its entries to move over? Anything else that you could think of that you would like to see that would help you feel like you're building a legacy from season to season? Beginning with Argembarger.
Yeah, like if I can like, somebody else can look at my character's book and see some record of achievements in New Legacy, that would be satisfying. I think for me at least. And otherwise, like, I think I like the idea of being able to do some kind of thing in the world with your character before the shattering that can linger afterward, like some kind of monument, like we talked about. That would be really, I think, to be able to visit that as the next character, I think would be super satisfying.
Crispy.
Actually, in my mind, I don't think I think the narratives and the world essentially is going to be completely season to season. I don't think it's going to be you'll drop back into New Legacy with the same narratives. I think it's going to be a whole new thing every single time. Every season will be a different story. Well, I actually wasn't aware. I didn't think that they'd just copy and paste it, and because on production, what's going on in New Legacy is linked to the storyline in production with Shadow Reavers, things like that. It's less involved, but I think it's just going to be a whole new storyline. Now, what I wish I'd sort of asked, and maybe we could get into that, is that they talked a lot about when they built the whole system is that it makes them easier. They're building in systems that make things easier to build these narrative paths. Is that whether can the community submit their own ideas for how those narrative paths could be? But in terms of what will roll over, I think I kind of said my thing about that. But yeah, I just see it as it's going to be a complete new story and a pretty much new refresh. Could even be a different landmass. Next season we might just be in Malice, or we could be we could be on a different landmass. We don't know.
So, to that point, Crispy, as I said, the narratives take up a significant amount of development time, and it makes up the smallest amount of your player experience for most players.
Mm.
Is that a
But
good?
it's
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. I don't think so. I think that I enjoyed it and it got me into it, and you just need that taste. So I think it's for they're thinking, well, new players will come into that narrative, enjoy it, like I enjoyed it, and then you keep playing and you do the bosses. I think if you've just got right, okay. So one thing is I noticed a lot of people who they're actually from the guild on Atlantic and they've joined a bit later. It's a bit of a ghost town in terms of they're doing the narrative very much on their own. Whereas I can remember the day the shards started, I didn't play beta that much, but like when it first started, everyone's doing narrative all at the same time, and it's like brilliant, like really good. So that people find it a bit of a ghost town who are doing it kind of at this stage in it. They're just going around doing it, but I'm sure they're having fun. I just think going straight to rotating bosses and spawns and stuff like that, I'm not sure is the best way. I think it's good to have that, right, this is a new world with a new story, what's going on?
I agree with you, but I do think that to your point about the pain of the current end game, I think that personally I would be an advocate for the developers spending a little bit more time with that, because it does end up being the rest of your player experience on New Legacy, apart from the handful of days that are involved with clearing through the narrative. Over to Ivy.
Yeah, I mean, I just agree with everything you guys have been saying for the most part. I really don't have much feedback on it. I pretty much said what I was going to say on it. But I definitely am interested, like you did say, Crispy, about maybe a new island and things of that nature. Just kind of maybe each season add, even if it's just one new area, new dungeon, new island or whatever to explore, uh, to tie it all into your family name being explorers and discovering the world and things like that is pretty much where my mindset is as well.
Gotcha. Well, what about like in terms of, building that legacy for your personal journey as a player? What would that look like for you? A statue of Poison Ivy from season 1, a continuation of the legacy sash? Curious to see your thoughts there.
Wow, there's sashes. We're all gonna look like Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts. Yeah, I mean, continuing on the sash, having what your quote unquote ancestor had and then adding to it would be great, because of course if there's new things, then there would be new badges to put on it. So definitely would like to see the continuation of that. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be, statues per se. It could just be the plaques that are like at the banks and stuff like that. I mean, we don't use a great portion of the world on New Legacy. They can easily put up a museum, if you will, for all of our historic families.
Great thoughts there, Ivy. Rex.
So let me make sure I understand the question. By the way, Jack Sparrow's getting us all drunk, apparently. It's about a statue or a sash or some sort of profit sharing with the company, as many as 4 people directly under you. Is that the question?
Well, I mean, the question here is like, let's say, we get to season 2, Rex. What would you want to like carry over into season 2 to build on your legacy as Pumpkinstein?
Okay.
Sash, gold statue, etc.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't want to come off sounding like some sort of like commie, but some of you play a lot more than me. And you deserve some sort of reward for that. Like if you've killed Eureka and Torst 1,000 times, then yeah, I think you should have a statue or something. But not everyone's going to put that much time. Not everyone's going to put that much effort. But wouldn't it be interesting if you had in your bank a diary, since you're supposed to be your family legacy? You know, this is the House Punkenstein, right? That recorded some information about the ancestors, whoever you were, like, you know, your first couple of characters. And then you could put that in your house and it could be readable by other people. But some of us haven't put forth the effort to get 150 Eureka tales, and I'm not going to. I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again every day. I don't mind doing it, you know, when we do the guild hunts and everything, but I'm not going to log in and just run into a Crimson Dragon because she's there. I didn't mean to gender the dragon. I don't actually know what gender the dragons are. I don't care either because they're targets and they respawn infinitely. So it is nice to get a cool item from them, but the difficulty curve on it is like, if let's say you did something amazing and the CPU would know. So let's say you went in by yourself, Wyvern. This is never going to happen because William needs heals is not going to help if there's no one else in there. But let's say you went into the Manicore Den by yourself and soloed it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a little plaque or a statue in the Capitol noting somebody doing something like that. Or if you were one of those players, and Ivy is an example of one when she's not working, who will go out there and do a lot of stuff. Now, some of it is completely social credit. You know, other guildies say, yeah, Ivy did all these things for me. Other people that aren't in the guild, she's an emissary. They say, yeah, you know, Poison Ivy, I know her. I know her from Chesapeake or Atlantic, and she did all these wonderful things for me. But as far as making an actual plaque or something, yeah, if you do something really awesome, meet some threshold, absolutely. But if you're like me, a little more casual, just having your family history where it's in your backpack, it's in your bank, and you can put it in your house, and then every season it would record the deeds, I think would be just fine because we're not all exhibitionists.
Yeah, you make a great point, Rex, and I would actually be thrilled to have some sort of family diary or journal that passes from season to season and records the achievements of, you know, the
Your
generation.
family tree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great idea. Zeke?
Yeah, to go back on Rex and what I had said earlier is basically like a journal or a book, or I mean, the statue would be fine, but I kind of like the journal idea where you have, you know, showed your accomplishment. And again, it's like the sash. I mean, if you look at your book, or your journal, it does indicate that, you know, on this date you did this, or at least for the first time. And just carry that book, you know, just carry the book over. I mean, it already exists. It already has the things that you've already done in it. So when it gets wiped at the end, the fact that, you know, it shows up in your next season in their bank box is a really good idea, and shouldn't be too difficult to do since it already exists.
Cheers, Zeke. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next question here, player crafting. Will there be improvements to player crafting? I'm going to go ahead and play that sequence for us, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, so you know, I have heard the feedback from players that they want crafters to be more impactful in New Legacy, and it's definitely on our radar for making improvements to what that looks like. As far as specifics, you know, I can't really go into anything in detail, but one goal of mine is definitely to make crafters more impactful. Whether that makes it into this season or something purely for next season is still to be determined. But yeah, we want crafters to have a purpose other than as they say, a repair bot essentially. So yeah, I definitely heard the feedback on that.
Argembarger.
I died in the wool crafter. I will say, actually, this question was the one that resonated with me the most, and in the document, I did throw in some notes at the time as a comment. But I think it would be great to have, because, you know, essentially, if you're talking about like a party of friends who are going to go adventuring together, if I log in as my crafter and jump on, I'm pretty much just a liability right now. So it's basically like a sightseeing tour, like an additional escort quest for the raid. And it would be really neat if I could, because I feel like a role like that where you're basically being supported should to give you the ability to do something for the party that makes it worthwhile to get to bring such a defenseless character into like really dangerous places. And what like at least the blacksmith narrative quest line talks a lot about like, oh yeah, we're reinforcing the city. Like here's these defenses. Here's like you're basically it's like playing like you're a siege engineer or something like that, but you're really just kind of a hauler. You're just kind of hauling stuff around. But something like that where you can like build like palisades or like siege equipment or yeah, like if you could just go in like your party takes you to the boss fight where there's a ton of enemies around and like oh you can quickly throw up some defenses to help like crowd control or like like block off one area so that the party doesn't have to worry about mobs coming from that, whatever it might be for a given encounter. But that I think that would be really exciting if it's like, and and plus whatever you might do normally, like actually be a repair bot and like help people out with their equipment, but like give some way to like be like, yeah, like the party took on this additional challenge of bringing this like near useless person, but once they're there, like they can do something really cool. They can like have an impact on the fight. But even if not, it is still just like it is what it is. And like I do like the fact that the system in general lets me add other class features. You can kind of pursue developing your character beyond strictly the limitations of the narrative quest you chose. So I learned in this conversation today that there is an assassin's quest line, and I'm like, crafter assassin? Question mark? So my gears are turning, but that's those are kind of my ideas. Like if the crafter can do something off the wall to like, even if it only is like actually useful in like one or two encounters or something, like it would still be pretty neat to like, be able to help out more than just, oh no, here, let me hammer your armor for you.
You made some great points, Argembarger, but I was thoroughly distracted by Poison Ivy streaking the podcast here. But to what you shared, I think it ties into maybe like attaching elements of the crafter experience to other elements of a possible revised endgame, such as PvP areas, which has rare crafting resources that crafters would have to go for and be protected against player killers during their journey into those kind of areas. But I'm branching out. Over to Crispy.
I'm actually gobsmacked by Argembarger's idea of turning UO's history on its head and having the crafters get their own back on the PKs. Like, I'm just thinking we did the dungeon outposts thing where we just tested it out, right? And then being able to make essentially walls of stone in the dungeon outposts would be amazing. Like, that's such a good idea. But I'd never thought of it. You could do it, but you could. That would work. I think kind of really just in terms of the crafters, they are just repair bots right now. And I made one. I've got crafter. It's just to make potions or and it to repair my own stuff. When I originally played UO back in the day, crafters were useful because you had to spend a lot of time finding. At the moment, you can get like as the Conjurarium levels up, you can find that pretty high level equipment, but like good enough high level equipment. So it makes crafting useless. But back in the day, crafters made quite viable suits that you could use. You might have your like really good weapon, but it took a long time to find that, and probably too long on New Legacy scale timelines. So it's a tricky balance because they've got to make it so people can go out and hunt and acquire weapons through that, but also you've got to make it so crafters can make things easily and just make them straight away. I don't think it's the right way to go to have crafters have to, I don't know, like grind out by repetition, like a perfect weapon or anything like that. There needs to be viable stuff that crafters can make that people can use, but it doesn't overlap too much with what people hunt. And I don't have an answer for how you do that, and it's not going to come this season. Like I'll have to have a think about it, and it will be in next season. And I think that's what they said, really. Crafters were a bit of a weirdly like they're pushing a core part of the game mechanic, but I don't think that this season that anything's going to come along that's going to be too groundbreaking. Like, I just think they need to think about how they can balance it out next season. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could do a great job bringing up like the dilemma there, right, between what players can acquire out in the world and what players can make with their crafters, and trying to find a balance between the two and make crafters relevant. So thank you for, and it is a significant design conundrum. So yeah,
Don't you think though that they've kind of, by time boxing themselves into a year with all the experience that they've got over decades of experience, like their experience lies in that they're used to working with an iceberg of a MMO, and now they're working with a 1 year slot, right? And that's a huge change in the way they have to think about things.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's another really good point you make, Crispy. Over to Poison Ivy.
Ah, yes, crafting, my PTSD.
Ah.
Yeah, like I said, I discussed with them my visions for tying in crafters on NL in the future a little bit more. I mean, now that they've got a good example our first year on how people quickly go through things, I think that they can definitely, going forward, enhance us as crafters and also give us better rewards for the time and effort that we put in, because like they were saying, we're just repair bots at this point. Our journey ended the day that we became GM. And that was fairly quickly. So that was a little bit disappointing. But again, it's the first season. It's understandable. But since they're usually not our mains, what rewards going forward in the history building of our characters will they receive? I mean, getting a plaque or a statue because, we're all out there with our ember wings and killing all these baddies and stuff, 1,000, 10,000 times or whatever is understandable. But when your journey has ended within 30 days of starting, what else is there that we can be recognized for when all we're doing is repairing our own armor or guildie's armor or whatever? So definitely want to see more tie-ins that will take us through the year on our crafters going forward in new seasons coming up.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I think that, players like Argembarger who love crafting and was very excited about, diving into the crafting system on New Legacy should be allowed to have the sense of being a legendary crafter somehow in the second season of New Legacy. Poison Ivy, as you suggest.
Yeah, that would be great.
Over to Rex.
I am famous for not playing crafters. I'm actually famous for playing characters that have no function outside of the narrow limits of fighting monsters. It's probably because the few times I have messed around with crafting, especially on a production shard when I was trying to make det cord I should say fuses for our cannons. It's just so long and it's so resource intensive. And I'm building off of a character that has other skills, so I've never played a dedicated crafter, which means I don't really have much to offer. I did kind of like what Arg was saying about making crafters useful outside of the limits of, hey, can you repair my stuff? Thanks for that. And then what Ivy said, once you GM, your story's over until you start making everybody's stuff for them. And I mean, I think that's boring for players if they're just, it's not your main, so that's probably not a problem, but it's just way outside of my wheelhouse. I've never understood the value, especially in like a production where the economy is the inflation rate in production is huge. I think you need like 100 million platinum to buy a banana now over there.
Oh boy.
So the idea, that's eggs, right? Yeah. But banana's much cheaper. But I would like to see if the crafters had something more. I mean, the whole thing with the Conjurium is like Conjurinium, geraniums, where you were contributing to raising the level of the community's ability to have more items is great. But then it's just like I did a bunch of bods and then I put them here and now I need to go. You know what's interesting, and maybe I'm off base here, is that when you're out collecting your ores and whatnot, there are dangerous things out there. If the crafting brought something to you, to the, like, let's say it brought something to the guild. Let's say that if every time you did a certain bots, it improved your guild rating, then it would give you a reason to get together and have a couple of crafters out collecting things while a couple of guildies were protecting them. Making a function out of it that was not so solipsistic.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that's really all I got on that.
That's a good one to have. I had a thought there, but obviously it just tumbled out of my head. But yeah, I think I finally caught it before it went off into the ether there. But Rex, you make a great point. And one thing that I think was really detrimental to crafters for the first season of New Legacy was basically decoupling them completely from the guild system. And I think you touched on that in your suggestion there. And it would be wonderful to see the developers find a way to tie in crafters into the guild system for the second season of New Legacy. And for us to see possibly even just guilds of pure crafters, a blacksmith guild, a fashion guild, etc., in future seasons of New Legacy by allowing them to take part in guild progression as crafters. Over to Zeke.
On the crafting, I would have loved to see my name on stuff that I make, exceptional it is in production. And when you craft something, it doesn't necessarily have to be like invulnerable, but fortification would be nice, where I can make a suit for somebody. And granted, it's not invulnerable, but it's, a Valorite plate mail suit that, has Gucci's name on it and has the traits from fortification. So it doesn't have to be the highest tier, the next highest, and so it would progress with the Congium. So, one step below or equal to, but something to make it other than to fill out a freaking bod. Because, by the way, I hate bods. But they're necessary in order to get some of the things I want, like to enhance, weapons when I finally get one and things of that nature. But I think, it already exists in production. It's called Exceptional. It has the crafter's name on it. It's not as good as what you can get as loot. But it is good enough that somebody can actually wear it and survive in it, and so that they can, try to get the other piece that's would be a slate upgrade. So I think that's a change they should definitely make. And I don't even think it's that difficult that they should be able to do it in published too. It's probably too late for that now, but definitely for season 2. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to craft exceptional gear.
Thank you, Zeke. Brief open floor before we move on.
Why can't you make things better than drop
Yeah.
through? If you had Grandmaster here, developers that are listening, put this into your brain. Suppose you're out there mining ore, right? Mine, and you go back to the blacksmith guild, and they're like, there is something better than blah blah ore. There's super uber mega double OK 69 ore, and you're like, how do I get it? And they're like, well, there's a map, but you need to be able to. And then you go on this little quest, right? And then you get this sweet, just piece of just ore, and then you come back, and you can then craft something that's better than what occasionally you find in Torst's butthole, because I assume that's where he's hiding those things.
Yes, but it smells so sweet.
Well, it does smell like roses because they're manticores.
That would give another good reason to, like, maybe those places are super dangerous and it's hard for a crafter
to bring people to help you. Here's one thing that used to be in the old days of Dungeons and Dragons that no one uses anymore. They're called hirelings. And that's when you go out and hire a bunch of schmucks to provide you with crossbow coverage while you, the 4 hit point wizard, do the important things. And we can't hire help. So we have to use our friends in our guilds. So give us the same experience. And then maybe I'll do a crafter.
Here. I love that, Rex. And I think Argembarger's on board with you about the possible excitement with that kind of a steer. So hopefully Parallax is listening and getting some ideas from this discussion. All right, moving on to guild systems. Will there be continuity between seasons for guilds? We know the answer to that, but let me go ahead and play that response, and then we will dig into it.
Yeah, that's something we've definitely talked about. Housing is one of those things where it's kind of core to the UO experience, regardless of whether it's on New Legacy or on production or whatnot. And we do have a number of different 7x7 options that we can explore. Whether it makes it into the next New Legacy publish is kind of up in the air at this point. Depends on how a couple other different projects we're working on shake out, but it's definitely something that we've talked about. But since you did ask about crafting, maybe we gotta start looking at how crafters can collectively build something bigger than a house. You got to build it brick by brick. And I think I just heard Steven groan from all the way across the internet. But yeah, it's definitely something we want to provide more aesthetic options for. Although you guys have really made this tower into something special, so I'm totally digging the rooftop bar.
Okay, so just kidding. We're doing player housing next, starting with Argembarger.
Oh yeah, I say I got a house of my own. That's gonna take a while, but the house, just the tour I got to see of like Santa's workshop in the last time I was able to hang out
I was
was
told
so
killed
inspiring.
me.
Like yeah, that was really inspiring. Like just that it feels so limitless. Like and like it's kind of a very human thing where a lot of people, if they want to leave a legacy that lasts beyond themselves, they tend to turn to architecture and construction, and that's something that I think they should definitely like. If New Legacy 2 had this tower, is like I don't know if even if it was just like the shell of it, because so many years have passed, like I I that would still be neat. And I don't know if that's even something that they can do, but I'm sure they can. This game seems very flexible and like I said, like a medium for freeform roleplay. So if they want to have like this tower become a ruin, then they certainly can do that, I'm sure. But it'd be better if there was a way, but before the shattering, well, and depending on what the shattering specifically represents. But if our characters have descendants, then obviously they don't get obliterated or whatever. So if there was some kind of way where it's like, yeah, if you do this, that, and the other before the shattering, then you can say like this building will have had enough upkeep to like make it to the second game. But if you don't make those requirements, then it's like, yeah, it'll fall into disrepair or something. And then you can kind of apply the passing of time to like everything. I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're going to be doing, and they're keeping their cards close to their chest, but that's kind of that. I think that would be really something to see.
Thank you, Argembarger. Crispy.
I don't mind since it's just a year. I'm quite happy with the housing situation. It's not massively inspiring because we've all got little tiny houses, but it's okay. I don't mind too much. Maybe we could have things like the little marble towers, that kind of thing. I'm not sure about maybe crafting. Maybe Kyronix mentioned this of like if you have some sort of craft in stonemasonry, you can kind of build a house at some point. I'm not sure if it is on our conversation or another.
It was in our conversation.
Yeah, he was talking about that, wasn't he? But I've always thought something like, in my mind, when you think like, well, how would I do this? And I'm like, well, maybe within a town. So, where our houses are right now, and it's a set housing zone. But if you had some special skills, you could kind of move your house out and place. If you had some sort of masonry skill, you could build a house further out, and that'd have some cost. It'd let you kind of freely place. Housing's always difficult just because on production, it's an absolute, especially because I come from, I'm on Atlantic and it's all about you can't place big houses or anything like that. You can actually place small houses. I don't know. Housing for me, I don't use my house a lot on New Legacy. I just use it. I use the guild house really. That's my main house. My New Legacy house is a storage bin essentially, just of what it is. I just don't know. They could do some interesting things, but I don't think they would because I'm not sure it's important. It's not important to me anyway.
Cheers, Crispy. I think the houses, as they're implemented in New Legacy, harkens back to very early days of Ultima Online. Some of them are very classic, from what I understand, including this small stone tower, which we're all hanging out in right now for the discussion. Over to Poison Ivy.
Okay, 2 things. Yeah, I was the one that brought up tying crafting into housing. But second, if we were truly going to be true to the original UO, we'd all be living in tents right now because that's what we had. And that would be kind of cool, actually, to have to stake out and start from a campground and then build your way up. And again, that goes back to tying it in with your crafter. Give us something to craft and be proud of, and give us a lot of options and tie it into quests or even killing monsters, whatever, they can drum up. But we have a lot of things that we can collect in now, and we have these little boxes to try to stuff it all in and show it off, and it makes it hard and it makes it cluttered. We were able to do what we could do here only because it was a tower. But yeah, they definitely need to work on that and give us more options and tie it in so that we can expand in the next season.
Ivy, tell me a little bit about tents in 1997. I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, we didn't have housing, so you had to set up camp. So you had a bedroll and a tent and a campfire. And that's your safe area, basically.
That's fascinating. And I think that would actually really tie in very well to the theme of expedition in New Legacy for, the player's story. So it would be really fascinating if Broadsword were to take a look at initial tent housing for us, pioneers / colonists for the second season, and then, link up housing to some element of the crafting system, or several elements for that matter.
Absolutely.
Crispy looking like a pretty cool orc here. Oh no, that's that's Rex partying it up. Speaking of, over to Rex.
Housing. Ivy likes to decorate houses. I feel more like, I think it was Crispy. It's like, it's just a place where I store my stuff and take a shit. It's not really, for me personally, a big thing, because I don't have the patience for for building houses. Wyvern, you saw my house over.
I did.
Yeah, it's if Ivy didn't give me things to decorate it, it would just be bare floors. But I know people like it. And my biggest complaint with the housing, and this sounds petty. At first I liked it, but now it's like gonorrhea. How you got there was fun, but now it's a pain in the dong. Having to go back, do these quests, these same quests over and over again, just so that the town doesn't throw me out. They're like, "Oh, brave hero, you did so much good for us." And then like a month passes and they're like, "What have you done for us lately?"
Big time.
And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go down into, the dungeon, and I'm going to kill mummies for 14 times. I'm going to do that quest 14 times, which, by the way, is a great way to get bandages and reagents if you need them. Don't make things feel like work. If you want, I'd rather pay rent. If they'd be like, or you can pay rent, here's some gold.
Mhm. With my house, I'm like, so basically, I can't go on. If I go on holiday, like my house will fall over. Like,
Exactly.
Can't go on holiday when you're playing New Legacy, Crispy.
yes. Sorry, 1 o'clock, like all the time. No, but if you're like, right, I just want a month off for summer, right? I'm not gonna use my computer. I'm just gonna go out, have fun. You have to like go back and like refresh your house. It's like that is kind of BS. I've got to say, like
It is. It absolutely is. I'm going to cut grass. I'm going to get my pool in shape. I'm going to swim in my pool. I'm going to plant flowers against my will. I'm going to take trips, like you said. The sun will be up sometimes till 9 o'clock at night. There's things to do, and creating a requirement that I appease the overlords of Moonglow or whoever, or Trinsic. It's like, have you thought about bricking up the dungeon? Is it doing anything useful for your people? Here's some money. Hire some guards.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like it's an imposition, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Rex. Over to Zeke.
Yeah, I'd like to see maybe just a little increase, or make us, or allow us to do customized housing, maybe 8x8 or 9x9. Some kind of quest, for the crafter, or not necessarily crafter, because not everybody's going to have a crafter. Yep, that's about it.
And they should have one season where there are no cities and everybody can build a city if they want to.
Oh, I like that. I like that, Argembarger. Open floor. Anyone want to throw in some last couple of thoughts here regarding player housing before we move on to, I think, the guild system?
We
Okay.
covered it pretty well, I think.
Off to the guild system we go.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, as far as like the progress, that you would definitely reset. Like that is core to the design of New Legacy, in that there is a hard reset component to it. As far as continuity of like the guild and the names and things like that, that is not baked into the shard, kind of like your surname is, right? We have that tied, and they're unique, right? For the most part. But guilds are a little bit different. So, what that ends up looking like in season 2 remains to be determined at this point. But what I will say about guilds is that we view, I think, collectively guilds as kind of the glue that holds together player communities, right? It really provides a backdrop for people to make the world their own. If you want to role play a guild of pirates, you can do that. If you want to be orcs, you could do that too. If you want to role play a guild of zombie bitten missionaries that invade Britain every day at 5 o'clock, you could do that too. So anything that we can do to kind of promote and support those guild activities, we definitely want to. And then as far as your other question about kind of the required upkeep and stuff like that, we look at all that in the broader context of how much housing there is available and how guilds are able to support it. And once we get through the first season and we can kind of drill down and look at what those metrics are, we'll have a better understanding of kind of what kind of tweaks we want to make it. Because we don't want to make it punishing, right? We don't want to make it like it feels like a second job. But we also want to make sure that people stay engaged with what they're doing on the shard, because we don't want it to be a place where people just show up, build their whatever, and then abandon it, because we've seen that happen too. So striking that balance is tough, but it's something that's high on our list of priorities for kind of looking at season 2 at guilds.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm looking forward to the feedback from our attendees here for the discussion. But one immediate thought that I had, one concern that I have is, okay, fine, the guild progress will reset for season 2. I can work with that. But one thing that does concern me, and this goes back to Kyronix and Broadsword's vision for guilds, is sort of like the glue that ties together the Ultima Online community, is if the names of guilds don't roll over to the second season in some capacity, I could see mischievous players out there actually nabbing iconic guild names and then sitting on them, to the detriment of long-established guilds like Kindred, Order of Loyalty, Cool, or newer guilds like ourselves at the Wyvern's Lair. That's a real concern that I have, and I'm wondering how the Broadsword may want to try and address that. If, in fact, nothing carries over to the second season, the only thing that would have any meaning for a guild would be its guild name. And how can they protect that for the guilds that have come to New Legacy and are hoping to continue in future seasons? Over to Argembarger. Guilds.
Yeah, so actually I'm kind of curious, how many guilds are there in New Legacy? Do we have a sense of that?
There. If you go onto your character doll and click on guilds, you can. Is that where you can find information about guilds? I forget, but there is a way.
Oh yeah, guild roster.
Yeah, the
No,
guild
that's
roster.
and then
Well, there's the guild roster, and then there's
diplomacy.
diplomacy, which lists all the guilds that are here. Now, many of these guilds consist of just maybe one or two, a handful of players. But as far as guilds that actually have sort of progressed in the first season of New Legacy, that's a handful of guilds. Amongst them, of course, at the very top, Kindred or Order of Loyalty here with Crispy and his team from Atlantic, newer guilds like ourselves at the Wyvern's Lair, and several others, but not too many.
I'm counting almost like 160 guilds. There's a lot. but no, that makes sense. Then the other aspect is, so like one of the things about UO that I think is really cool is how the cities do have kind of a respected, at least in the production charts, have like the governors and the whole cycle of like role playing the city government, and guilds are kind of a grassroots form of that, to me. And I think it's, well, first of all, just having like, because often games will just, the guilds are completely outside the game and it's just like, people self-identify with like changing their name or whatever. So the fact that it has like a built-in recognition in the first place puts it a leg up over a lot of games. And I think if there was a similar kind of like, I don't know, like this, we have this tower here, but the game knows the tower belongs to the guild, right? Or is it just like literally just a collection of people's contributions to it? Just like, does the game know that this tower belongs to the guild? Or
Oh,
is it just
absolutely. So in order to
Yeah,
keep
okay,
this
yeah.
tower here, the guild, or essentially, yes, the guild itself, the people who make up the guild,
Yeah.
we need to renew our lease on this land on a monthly basis, and that is done through player activity in game. So absolutely,
sorry.
if everyone were to quit the Wyvern's Lair tomorrow, there's a high chance that I, as a very busy person IRL, would not be able to maintain the tower, and so I kind of count upon. Well, the good thing about being part of a guild is that by naturally playing the game, doing legendary foes, doing dungeons, dungeon quests, you can contribute towards town loyalty for your guild tower.
Yeah, so that helps because we only own the building, right? Or is the land itself parceled out where like we're allowed to build here? Sorry for my ignorance, kind of slogging up the conversation.
Yes, no, absolutely. So there are parts of the world map which are designated for guild housing zones. This is one of them.
Sweet.
South of Trinsic.
Gotcha. So I guess because I don't have a way to automatically see other guilds because I put a marker on ours and that's all I can really see on the map. But like, yeah, having more like, this territory is this guild's territory, and if if it brushed up against another guild, like just being able to see like a wider kind of strategic map of like guilds vying for like control of the overall like area, that would be really, and it's something like a regular player who's not in any guild could just ignore it. But if you are in a guild, being able to just see the relative sizes and like territories of the different guilds, and like that could go a long way in my opinion for like giving the guild, not only giving the guilds like goals, but like giving them reasons to interact with each other than like, oh, they happen to be getting raided, or you just encounter each other while you're going about your normal activities. Yeah, even if we all have to start over, if there are some other ways to ensure that the guild can have its own legacy like the players can, then that could lead to some really epic stories where multiple guilds are rivals over multiple seasons and are just building up all these like personal lore of like how their interactions with the other guilds are going. It's a really neat system. So I can see why they would want to reset it, but yeah, this is like you just want, like you said, like being able to protect your guild name or have some ownership of the name so that you're not worried about, people impersonating, and then some way to remember what the guild did before so that can just keep building a chain of stories. Really, really neat if they can pull that off. But
Argembarger, you touched on something brilliant. I hadn't even thought of the idea or value of a guild legacy, but I think that there's real potential there, whether it's in the form of a book like Rex has been talking about, or some sort of array of trophies designating all the various levels you've been able to attain in a previous season. That all might have, I think, some real potential for the guild system. Crispy.
Got loads to talk about guilds. Like, I think the Wyvern, the thing you was talking about, the names?
Yep.
Like, that has actually happened. So when I didn't know how successful or actually how many people would transfer from production to, I didn't know whether it'd be all the guilds from, say, I'm an Atlantic person, right?
Right.
I was like, is everyone from Atlantic going to come over? And we were like, we need to make sure we secure our name from Atlantic on New Legacy. But it didn't turn out that way. I think the guilds that I know that come over are cool, and Syndicate, like our LTS, and excuse me, but the other big guild I've seen that have come over are the Will Turns, TWT, and their name got sort of punked, I guess. Like, so someone made a joke guild having a joke on their name, like when they brought it over. And I do worry, like with it season to season, if you can't retain that guild name, just like you're saying, someone can just get there first and make a joke guild that they can sort of have a laugh with. But I just hope that the GMs would be able to recognize that and figure it out. But I don't know, I'm 100% confident, but I have seen exactly what you talked about. I've seen, like, so there's that. I think like the other thing I worry about is, well, it kind of goes back to the previous conversation we was having about housing, is the guild, like your guild tower upkeep, right? So that's a house. It's full of like, it's been decoed. Like, we are intentionally not decoing our house because like every time we level it up and we can get a new house, then it's work to redeco it. But the summer's coming up if you're in the northern hemisphere, right? Like, and we worry we can't keep the upkeep on our. I worry about this all the time, and as as sort of guild leader, I don't want to have that worry of like, is my guild house, are the players in my guild like getting enough points on the house to do this, right? It's just, completely unnecessary. I don't think that they should have guild house upkeep at all. Like, because you could take some time out. You don't know what's going on with the guild, and then your guild house falls down. Like, that's just too much, I think. I don't like the upkeep on the guild house, and I know they said we need to keep people engaged, but I don't think that's the right way to do it. It's too punishing on, there are individuals on the end of this who have to motivate people and recruit people all the time. I can understand that they don't want to see things stagnate, but it shouldn't be put on us. Like, it's up to them to introduce content and things that bring people into the game, and not push it onto people who are running guilds and things like that.
We must us take out our batons and knock around our members to get in game and refresh the guild house.
Yeah, it's not like that way, but it's just like keeping things fresh. If your guild in the summer might be wanting to do other things, and and I can totally understand that. Like, with that whole system, it's like, well, you'll have to swap these members out and bring in new members who are actually more active. And I get the prestige points to level your guild up is cool, and the member cap is I can live with that. I could even live with sort of my house thing, but my own personal house, even though it's Rex is saying completely right. It's a pain, and you shouldn't have to do that. The guild house, for me, that's too much. Like, do you see what I'm saying, Wyman?
I do. I do have one quick question for you, Crispy, before we move on to the rest of the group here. Cool is in a unique position in terms of leading the season as far as guild progression. And one thing that we've noted is that rewards have been really inconsistent from level to level. And I believe that Cool is now at guild level 5 or 6. Which guild level are you guys at right now?
5.
5. So that 5 was a monumental lift for Cool. A lot of points went into reaching guild level 5. It takes a tremendous amount to progress guilds on New Legacy for the first season. You arrived at 5, and there was really nothing there in the way of a reward for all that effort. And I'm wondering if you feel like at every level there should be a new building option for the guild, or another reward that you think is even more valuable than, let's say, another guild house.
I can't say people were disappointed, because how it obviously works, it's like house reward, and the reward is increasing the resource bank. But yeah, I don't think that works at all. Just like, if they want to make this progression slower, don't have it so everyone's not chasing, but they're trying to hit a level, and then you just get your resource bank doubled. I mean, the resource bank's okay, and it will help us a bit, but it is disappointing for people who don't interact with that thing, right? Like, the resource bank is really it's useful for me, because people can put things in, and then crafters can make things, but all they can really do is make potions and that kind of thing. Like, that's what we use it for. We just you can put in the resource bank reagents, and then I'll make potions. That's all we use it for. It's just not good. So having people build up 60k prestige points, which is a crazy amount, and then you just go, okay, we doubled your resource bank, that is really crazy. And people in our guild, you're in our Discord, Wyvern, they were kind of a bit and I think even on the main UO CAC Great New Legacy Discord, people weren't happy about that, right? About amount of
No, I wouldn't be happy with it either.
Yeah, but that's what you're gonna get. One yeah, the jump to get the fortress above this. Not that it matters, but it's it is a huge amount. But to get to a level and you get nothing is kind of, or you get something, but not anything really tangible is frustrating.
Yeah, it's a huge blow to morale. It disinclines people from wanting to push.
It's morale, right? So, I think they're sort of saying that guilds are the lifeblood of UO. Why treat us so badly?
Yeah, they could have made the reward slower decay of upkeep requirement or something. That would probably be massive at the numbers up there.
It's essentially the opposite, because the bigger the
accelerates the upkeep. Yeah,
accelerates the upkeep and puts more pressure on everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Crispy. Over to Ivy.
Kind of tying this back to where I was discussing how in 30 days, crafters come to the end of their journey, basically, here. I kind of feel when I saw that you guys had reached level 5 for cool here and there was nothing, I kind of felt that same kind of disheartened about it because so much work goes into it and so much can be done with it that there was no foresight to see that people who are gamers in the modern world, we work fast. I mean, we're engaged, we do a lot, we have communities, and that was just disappointing to me. I was really hoping for something, an add-on maybe for the guild tower, or in your case, the Citadel. Just something because that's a lot of work. And, there was no heads up, if you will, about, hey, there's literally nothing after this. It was kind of left for us to discover. And I think that they could have done better because of all the things that already exist on production that I can't see why they would have, quote unquote, broken anything by having them here on New Legacy. And so now you're going to have to maintain the grind, if you will, just to keep the Citadel alive. And you kind of go for what? So I would definitely like to see, like I said before, some sort of tie-in with our other characters to maintain, upkeep, whatever, with some sort of reward for it other than it's still standing.
Thank you, Ivy. Rex.
As usual, I listen to the developer thing and I have a completely different set of thoughts. I represent that small percentage of players that apparently doesn't think like the developers like. And I noticed that the developer kept saying, if they want to roleplay pirates or they want to roleplay as orcs, okay, we could roleplay mimes if we wanted. I mean, Discord's going to be a really pain if we're all roleplaying mimes. But if we wanted to all wear the same color and all wear a tribal mask and call ourselves the Leatherfaces, we could. That has nothing to do with guilds. That's just, I mean, that roleplay is a sticky word. Some people are weird, man.
Right.
What are they doing to enable it, I guess, is my question. That seemed like the kind of person that says, hey, do you know what? This product is gluten-free. You're like, yes, Tide detergent has always been gluten-free. But
Yeah,
now it's
same.
something you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think in that conversation, right, they said, so guilds, but you can also just do anything. You can role play anything you want. I didn't get that. Is that what you're talking about? Like
Yes.
that comment they made?
Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
thanks for giving me permission to make my paper doll, my little plastic. I mean, if I was playing Warhammer and I wanted to paint all my little plastic soldiers pink, I can. I don't actually have to follow their painting guides and their rules. If I want to say, yeah, I know it says it is an Astartes Legion, but we're all ducks. I can do that. I have that freedom. What have you done to enable it? And he mentioned all that, but it's like, well, what have you done to enable that?
Yeah.
That's not value added. That's just telling me how my spare ribs are gluten-free. Spare ribs are always gluten-free. They've always been gluten-free. You're just putting that on there because people are concerned about gluten now, and you can make new packaging. And by the way, you want to roleplay a guild of orcs? If you want to roleplay a guild of orcs, and you don't have an orc mask that turns you into an orc, and you don't have polymorph, you're just a player running around talking funny. You go like, good luck roleplaying pirates. We don't have boats. Pirates without boats are called thieves
Bandits.
or brigands or
Bandits, yeah.
bandits, but they're certainly not pirates. Piracy literally requires that you either sell music that you've stolen or you have a boat. So I didn't think that was very value added.
For the developers who will be listening to this podcast in the future, Rex will always bring the rumble. Over to Zeke.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I'd like to go back to some earlier part of the conversation about the guild names. I hate to tell you, but guild names are not unique across shards. So the fact that, let's say TWL could be a guild on Atlantic and it could also be one on Legends. So I don't see how they can do anything to safeguard that.
I would just like to say from the tone of Zeke's voice, I don't think he hated to tell you that.
Well, there is no other TWLs. I used this as an example.
Well, that's a good point, Zeke. Yeah.
But cool, like some of the big guilds on Atlantic, for example, I was in UWF for quite a number of years. it's not unique across shard.
Yeah, I know that. Like, and there's a cool, which is a unofficial splitter, like on Outlands with our name, right? Some people were like, "Oh, right, we'll just do it," and like didn't ask. They didn't ask us, but it's like, "Oh, okay, cool." But what I'm saying is that if someone wants to go and make cool on some Japanese shard with our name, I would be like, "Oh, I don't really care." If they were saying they were us, maybe I would, but I don't know. Like it's because we're on New Legacy, and it's like this is our guild. We're on Atlantic, and we're here. If someone made it on Europa, it would be a joke. If someone could like copy our name on Atlantic, it wouldn't be.
What I'm saying is I don't see how they could safeguard against that at all. I mean, I can have a cool on Legends that's been there for years and has the same reputation or whatever but it's not affiliated with the one on Atlantic. And there's no safeguards, and there's no way there can be.
Right.
Who's the right one? It's I'm not saying I wish there was a way to do it. Like with the Mystic Circle, we actually do have one on Atlantic and on Legends. Our main one is Legends, and we have one on NL. But there could be one on another, and there's also one on Gray Lakes, and it just so happens that they're all us. But it could be other groups. I mean, the names are not unique, just like our names are not unique, except for now the invention of the surname. So I'm not sure how they could do anything about that whatsoever, or that they should, because who's to say that the cool from Atlantic should be the NL cool versus the cool from Europa or the cool from Great Lakes or Legends or whatever. So I don't see that being any kind of realistic way of achieving that.
Yeah, but because it's seasonal, so like I could understand at the beginning of when they first started New Legacy, maybe you had people trolling and stuff, but because it's year to year, that's the problem, because it's every single year, is that you can, if it lasts for years and years and years, someone will just, the first person to grab that guild name will do it. And it could be a really established guild. We don't have this problem on production because you get your guild name and then you keep it, right? Like, and you can go off and make a name on a different shard, but that's not the guild, so no one cares. But on New Legacy, that's its own thing, where you've got recurring people who want to come back and back and back. You see what I mean? That's the problem with it. Like on normal shards, it doesn't matter. Like I don't care if someone makes a cool guild on a different shard, because it's like that's not us. It's like, but year after year, we want to keep our guild together. Someone could come in and basically grief us. Like,
Thank you for pointing out the fact what you've observed as an issue with retaining guild names season to season, Zeke, and how it works on production. Is there anything else that you've been thinking about in regards to the guild system? How it can
About the guild system, the guild system itself, there's definitely some kind of need to lower some of the requirements on some of the things. I think they did a decent job going with published one, the changes they made that made guild advancement much more attainable, especially for smaller guilds. I could still see that there should be some more work done in that area.
Thank you, Zeke.
And unfortunately, I don't really have a whole lot of suggestions about doing that other than lowering the numbers.
Hey, listen, any suggestion is very welcome, and you've added a lot to this discussion, Zeke, so thank you for that. We're moving on to community events. And the question for the developers was, will you have EM-style events on New Legacy? And I'm going to go ahead and play their response for us, and then we can talk about what we think about that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever have like EMs in the context that they exist on production on New Legacy. They're definitely different experiences, and we don't want to kind of blur the lines between the two. But I think this question kind of comes from some confusion that cropped up at one point. Somebody asked us about EM events on New Legacy, and our answer at that time was basically that the devs will essentially be the EMs, and well, that's not the case at all. Like, we're not going to go and be EMs. I didn't mean it that way, but more so in that the live events that you have come to expect on production, we will do on New Legacy as well. And in that context, some of the things and mechanics that you see in EM events, like big boss fights and limited time stuff where, it's got to be now or never. The castle is getting besieged by a vile evil from far across the starry sea, and it's now or never, or else the realm is going to be destroyed. Like that kind of stuff, we definitely want to do. I think that's kind of core to what the UO experience has been over the years. Like, we try to create things that people can experience on their own time, because we know people have things that get in the way of playing UO, like pesky things like jobs and family responsibilities and things like that. But we do want to still kind of harken back to those old days when you had to be there then and now. It's kind of like when people used to watch television at a given time, like when Seinfeld was on Thursday nights, right?
All right. So just to sort of bring us to the top of this conversation, I do think that one of the issues that we've had for the first season of New Legacy is the end game as it's presently implemented. I know that many of us here who are part of the discussion are exceptional players in terms of our ability to stick with the current end game experience so far, but a lot of feedback that I've heard from other players is they feel that they're bouncing off the dailies, which are the legendary foes, and only having that to look forward to week or month to month. And the fact that we haven't had some form or version of an EM event here on a monthly basis, I think has been really detrimental to the growth of New Legacy for the first season. So it's with that kind of framing that I want to dive into this, starting with Argembarger.
Yeah, of course. So I think if the main thing that separates New Legacy from other production shards is it's like designed to be temporary, in nature, then I think it sounds like that's kind of what they're angling towards. But the coolest thing you can do with something like that is actually threaten it with something. So actually having a threat that can actually destroy the world. You wouldn't. I don't think anybody would want something like that to threaten a permanent production shard. But like for New Legacy, that could be like a really like once in a lifetime kind of thing that you can do with it. Like make each season end with some kind of crazy bang, or and if the devs are willing to, because the other aspect of EMing that it sounds to me like is that it is like empowered, the players' creativity getting empowered. And if they're still planning on, like we've talked earlier in the discussion about having some kind of means for players to submit ideas for things and like allow the players' creativity to get harnessed. So if they do something like that, then I guess that would sort of fill in the gap of, because I'm sure the EM system as it is was likely cobbled together over many years and a lot of thinking and trying things. And if they are saying like we want to have more control, then as long as they use that to make something really cool and unique, like memorable happen, then I think it becomes a strength of the temporary nature of New Legacy rather than something else to put in the in the downsides of being temporary. So yeah, I mean, I think if that's the kind of direction they want to go, or they're gonna have some kind of crazy eldritch abomination like threaten to destroy everything, and everybody in the shards got to do something crazy to stop it. Especially if it's something the crafters can help out with, you know what I mean? I think that would be really wonderful. So, but yeah, I've never gotten a chance to experience an EM event as it is traditionally thought of, but I did really enjoy hearing about them again on the Santa's Workshop tour, and just hearing about all the with Tori, yep, and with all the things that have been done in the past. Like that's something I'm encouraged by the fact that I can, if I really want to experience that, I can surely find a production shard that's having an EM event soon and hop on and check it out. But yeah, if they want to lean into what makes New Legacy unique, then I want to see something cool out of it.
That's a really
Kill everybody, destroy everything.
That's a lot of great thoughts there, Argembarger. There is going to be a shattering event at the end of the season when the world comes to an end. And I guess the players, some of the beta testers had a taste of that during the beta for New Legacy. I do think your suggestion of a win state for these events and a lose state is very intriguing. I wasn't there for it, but some of the veterans here amongst the attendees could probably confirm that several years ago, the developers actually destroyed a player city on production called Magencia. And during the destruction of Magencia, players could actually return to the ruins and take back remnants of that ruined city. I think it was it you, Zeke, who was showing me some of the ruins that you'd taken back and placed in your house?
No, it's probably Tori. I don't have a very big. I might have mentioned it, but I don't have a collection of them.
Okay, it must have been Tori then who had some of the ruins of Magentia in one part of her player home. So there could be something like that or versions of that here in New Legacy for, depending upon how an event plays out and whether the players are successful or not. So that's an intriguing thought. I am a very bad host, and I want to apologize to the attendees here and also the developers and listeners who are part of this podcast, but I actually forgot to point out something regarding the guild system. So I've had the privilege of being the community manager for the Wyvern's Lair since the start of the Shard. And one thing that has always been sort of an issue for myself is how little benefits trickle down to people who choose to be part of a guild on New Legacy or the Wyvern's Lair. I, as the guild leader or community manager, definitely benefit from people joining the Wyvern's Lair because it makes our progression easier. It makes upkeep easier. So it motivates me to draw in players to this guild to remain competitive and to progress. But what does it give for a player to join a guild in the way of a benefit? I can't readily see one. Yes, they can occasionally visit a larger player building that they really have limited benefit from or a limited ability to interact with in the form of the guild house. Also, there are, things like the resource bank that are marginally useful in the first season of New Legacy for people who are, crafters. So I would love for the developers to think about, and indeed the player community as well, to think about what would it mean for the rank and file guild member to benefit from being part of a guild. I'm off my soapbox. Over to Crispy on the EM events.
EM events are I sometimes go to EM events. I know some people, and generally people that have got loads of money always go to EM events, right? Because they'll get the drop. But if you consistently go to EM events, you can make money off it. I'm not sure. This is my personal opinion. I don't think EM events are having someone running those things for the best use of OSL's time. I know it's a bit controversial. I know people love them and stuff, but having someone planning something out, you could have them doing something way better. I'd have them just the way they are. Go along, they do a storyline, and there's sort of some boss or something, and then you get a drop, which is worth a bunch of money. But I don't think it's a very good system, to be fair. I would do it differently. Maybe I'd just have them out in the community, sort of, and out with the players doing stuff. They should be at things like this, what we're having this conversation now. They should be all over this.
All these wandering healers. Where's our wandering EMs?
Yeah, they need to be seeking out and in the community, and not just doing these sort of kind of guilds do this sort of stuff. But they should be helping guilds. They should be enabling, not just running these things. And I've always thought they've been a bit. I'm not a fan of them, but that's my personal thing. I know people love them, and people make a bunch of money off them. So, and that's cool. But I just don't think it's not how I'd do it personally. If I was Broadsword, I'd have the same people, but do it in a different way.
Cheers, Crispy. Ivy.
All right. Well, I'm a big fan of having one-offs. I like them when they're random and kind of dropped on your head, not necessarily planned. So that's a way they could get around making it where, okay, on June 1st, I'm going to show up and this is what we're going to do. I'd rather run into something, maybe not necessarily an EM event, but an EM created occurrence. So we're all out, we're doing treasure maps, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then just randomly out of nowhere, something has triggered something. And we have to participate because we're in that area. We're now being attacked by, I don't know, hordes of liches or something like that. And then from that, you get maybe some special items to then turn into somebody like what we have now for being able to get the items with our points that you could then display in your home, or you get a sticker for your badge or something like that. That way it keeps the pressure off of them having to physically attend something, but make it be an option in the world. And also, if that's an option in the world, maybe more people would do a little bit more discovery of the world as well. We go to where we were talking about Easter eggs. You can kind of almost make it an Easter egg event So what do you have to do in this area of whatever dungeon that might set off some sort of encounter? Something like that would be, I think, workable on NL.
Those are some great suggestions, Ivy. I think it's what you suggested about these occurrences could be very exciting and would keep players engaged because they'd be, on any given day they could run into something like that. And I think that would motivate players to be a little bit more engaged with New Legacy. Rex.
Okay, once again, if any developers listen to our streams, don't punish me. Don't come logging in and I will come into my house, it's just like a pile of dirt and I'm perma-naked and I go to fight and it's like I have negative skill points. It's like you're giving life to Torst. Why am I giving life to Torst? But based on the developer response, in the spirit of charity, I will say balls, just balls. Because look, we all sort of accept it when we're playing an MMO. We're living in a persistent world. And that's why we all do the same class quests. And that's why none of us will ever actually solve the problem. But I'm not suggesting that you want to make these things permanent. Like, it's like, oh, hey, we killed Garthok. This place is safe now. It's like, oh, great. So now how do I finish my class quest? You don't. That would be horrible. So there's a balance you have to strike between, we all have to pretend like we're not living in a persistent world where every time I go here, Titan Weave is back. And at the same time, these EM events provide a little something to say, hey, here's a story. Because a lot of times, you go to these events and sometimes there's a storyline to it. And I don't read it because who has time? And I'm not paying attention. And then 100 million people are there. And boy, it's a mess. But Ivy made a great point. Why don't you give us something that rewards our involvement in the world, Easter eggs, exploration, that is maybe a one-off, and you kill that monster or those liches attack, and it's over, and then there's a little reward for it, and then it never happens again, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about. It doesn't necessarily have to be on this date at this time, but if you want to do a little storyline, you can say this storyline launches at this date and this time, and people can get involved, so that you don't feel like you're just in this forever war against legendary foes and the same things. I mean, one of the things about UO that's different from a lot of other MMOs, and this was a shock to me when I first played it, Ivy just basically sat there laughing at me because I just, she said, here, we'll make you a character, sit down at my desk and play. Okay, oh crap. Oh, it's also the first time I ever played EverQuest, come to think of it. I went down an alley and someone killed me. And I said, well, I'm done with this game forever. Is that the monsters will chase you, and they have a sort of it's a loose AI. It's not very AI, but it's better than what you get in the modern MMO, where the wolves never cross the river. And even though there's obviously weaker wolves on the other side of the river, and they should expand their pack to that other side and take over, and you can run away. I mean, sometimes you run away and you stop to catch your breath, and that damn monster's still following you. They obviously have something that makes the world, even though it's persistent, feel a little more lived in, a little more alive to you. And those EM things, that they kind of help, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like it is on production. As long as, and Ivy made a great point, and not just because she's my wife and I have to say nice things about her, but because that whole thing with the Easter egg thing, when we first started playing this shard, developers take note. One day I just explored. I went through every moon gate to every town. I walked into every building. I talked to every NPC. Hoping that you guys had put a damn paladin quest in there for me, and you didn't, and it hurt. It hurt so much. But that's how I found the bard quest. I was wandering around, and there was a poster on the wall, and I followed it. That's how I found the person that will teach you thief skills, which are almost useless on New Legacy, but hey, there's potential for the future. So it would be a great way to reward players, and if you wanted to add to it something to tie, and now I'm going to tie everything we said from the beginning of this stream to now all together. If you want to tie it in where it did reward your guild and it did reward you for these things, and it gave you a reason to want to play the game aside from just logging in and playing. I mean, there's a social aspect, we chat and whatnot. Okay, great. But there comes a point though where even people who are into the social aspect are like, I'm gonna go watch a game on TV, and that is fine. And it's not even their team playing. They're like, yeah, I'm supposed to say, hey, you gonna come to the event? Like, no, I'm not feeling it tonight. So it would be good. And I mean, if it doesn't have to be what they're talking about, but it does add value. At least it does on production. For some people, Ivy loves them. I go along with her a lot to do them. but I can see the value of it, and I think that maybe for season 2, they need to think about that instead of just putting everything onto. We're trying to create a different experience with New Legacy. Great, you can take the same thing and make it different. That pause means I'm done.
Well, I don't want to have the developers curse myself like they're, inevitably going to do here with you, Rex. But I do want to sort of underline that soapbox that was very eloquently put, and a great aristocrat to sort of tie together several elements of the conversation here. Thank you for that. Those thoughts, Rex. Over to the pirate captain Zeke for last words here.
No comment. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I agree with Rex. No, I can't believe I said that.
Of course you do, because I'm awesome.
That's because he's awesome. That's true. But I do participate in the EM events on Legends. It's nice. Sometimes it's a continuing story for over several months. Sometimes it's just a quick little whatever. Our EM over there, she has something every Tuesday, whether it be the governor's meeting every other month or what she calls tavern talk, where we sit down at one of the town taverns, hence tavern talk, and just talk game, whatever. We'll talk about what events are happening. We'll talk about what we think of this, that, and the other thing. So it's very informal. We sit there, we get drunk. And then the other time, there's a monthly one where she has a drop. It's usually the last Tuesday of the month. And that's where all the charters show up for. But something along the lines of something like, I like how Rex put it, where it's an end. So it's a one-time thing, and it has an ending, and the big bad boss dies and it never comes back again because we vanquished him. Versus, like you said, killing Titan Weave over and over and over and over and over again, and waited another hour and then kill him again. So I think something of that nature. The fact is, they have EMs. I'm not sure why he was saying that it would be a dev. I don't think it's a good use of the dev's time. But the EMs, that's what they're paid to do, is to come up with storylines. Maybe rotate it. 1 month is the EM from Great Lakes. 1 month is the EM from Legends. So you get different people doing it, different short storylines. They usually only go for an hour. And I think it's something that'll break up the monotony of, let's chase this boss down. Let's chase that boss down. Or kill him again. No, he respawned. Let's go get him again. That kind of a deal. And have a drop or not doesn't really matter. It's just something to change the pace, so to speak. And that's my 2 cents.
Those are some good 2 cents. I really love the idea of rotating EMs into New Legacy as well. I think that's a sort of a fresh thought on how you could change up things for our wonderful event moderators as well, give them a new sandbox to perform in for the player community, and to keep things fresh for New Legacy players, and to incentivize people to show up for New Legacy. So thank you for that, Zeke. This has been an amazing conversation. Thanks to these amazing guests who so generously provided their time for this discussion. We are 2 hours and a half into an epic podcast discussion reflecting upon what the developers shared about New Legacy with us. And I hope that this was interesting for the attendees here. Thank you one and all. Crispy, Zeke, Poison Ivy, Mariah, and of course, RexRumble here. I hope I'm not missing anyone. Oh, Argembarger, of course. How could we forget Argembarger from the guest list? Thank you all for making time today to share your thoughts and insights into how New Legacy has been evolving since it was launched and where it could go from here. I hope the developers who may listen to this find some insight, find some inspiration for further work on this season and next season in New Legacy. And I certainly hope the player community out there for Ultima Online enjoys listening to this too. And your voice matters as well. So when this is posted, wherever it may be posted across the internet, feel free to comment and put your thoughts down on that thread, wherever it may show up. And even if you don't want to sort of, tie your feedback to this podcast episode, especially as the developers have said many a time, they are listening to the player community. So go to the official forums and make your wishes and desires known for the second season of New Legacy. And with that, I want to thank you all once again for your time here. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You made this far richer for your attendance, and I look forward to connecting with you, many of you here, over and over again as we continue our journey into this season of New Legacy and future seasons. Thank you, one and all.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting a great talk.
Appreciate that.
Peace.
But comment, give money to him on Patreon.
Do it.
All right. Thank you all.